Can you just talk us through, first of all, exactly what are critical minerals and why are they so important?
So Ukraine does have significant natural resources, including critical minerals such as titanium, lithium, graphite, cobalt, and then in addition, oil and gas reserves. So these type of critical minerals are used for defence industries, tech industries, and they're found in various countries around the world. But essentially, there's a little bit of geopolitical competition going on here between China and the US. I think President Trump thinks that if he can get access to these minerals, that might give him an edge over China in coming years. But also because of the rare nature of these minerals and because they are used for those critical industries such as defence and tech, as noted, they're considered really desirable, very important, and that's why this is seen as an appealing deal from the US side.
Yeah, so how much will the rest of the world be watching what happens here?
I think everybody is watching. I think ever since President Trump started his second term, everybody has been watching very closely. And whilst we knew that there would be an element of uncertainty that would characterise the way in which Trump would deal with foreign policy issues, I think many people around the world have been surprised at the speed with which Trump has moved very rapidly away from a kind of a status quo agenda or modus operandi in terms of how he's approaching foreign affairs and diplomacy in this second term. So I think, yes, everybody is watching very closely. It was not expected that the US and Ukraine would sign a deal of this kind without substantive security guarantees for Ukraine. So even though it was President Zelenskyy himself who suggested, you know, a sort of a similar type of deal late last year, but he was suggesting it in exchange for very comprehensive security guarantees for Ukraine, which do not look like they're actually going to be included in this deal, as we understand it, that might be signed imminently by President Zelenskyy in Washington.
So if this deal does go ahead on Friday and is signed, how significant is this? You just mentioned how, the rest of the world is watching, but how significant is this development?
So it's significant in terms of what it says about how the US is likely to approach the war in Ukraine under a second Trump administration. And that is, we can already see a relatively transactional approach. It's an approach that's really focused on America's economic interests first, which actually aligns with Trump's broader agenda, which does have a very strong national interest-based focus. However, I don't see it as being significant necessarily in terms of leading towards more substantial conclusion to the war itself. So this is really, as we can understand in the way that we expect the deal to go ahead, is really more about economic factors. It's about the US, being able to benefit economically, but it's also about some of those funds going back into Ukraine for reconstruction. So there is that important element for Ukraine, but we're not seeing any kind of bigger plan around how might the war between Russia and Ukraine actually come to an end in a way that guarantees Ukraine's future security. We're not seeing that in this deal.
Okay, Dr. Jessica Genauer, thank you so much for giving us your thoughts on this. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on this morning.